This week on Capitol Report.
Okay, before we get started, a couple things I'd like to go over in the budget.
Get out your calculators. We're talking state budget adjustments.
We have a responsibility to reflect reality when it comes to our budget.
5 carry the 1 makes $656 million.
Plus, the debate over mandatory paid time off for Connecticut workers.
Now we have a product that can pass the House and we believe pass the Senate with the governor's signature.
Sammy, get well soon.
But Republicans aren't loving it.
We think this bill is just not good for Connecticut.
Would be bad. I'm fuzzy on the whole good-bad thing.
Also, a look at the pay increases for over 45,000 state workers.
This is for our system. This is for our state workers. We are your neighbors. We are your taxpayers.
It's a hard vote. It's a hard yes to take.
I say no when it feels so good to say yes.
And should the governor be allowed to wear a baseball cap in public?
Oh my God! My life's over.
Time to play ball. Capitol Report starts now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dutch. We are so glad you're spending part of the Sunday morning alongside the power panel of the great mayor of Bloomfield, Connecticut. Danielle Wong is with us. Hey, the Caleb Williams of the Capitol Report team is here. Joe, I bet you look good in the lid, huh? I think we'll get to that a little later. Liz Karanowitz is here, Republican strategist. Johnny Mack, the Drake May of the panel here.
Wow. Ooh, number three. That's not too bad. I'll take that.
You've got Carolina Blue on.
All right, guys, let's get into it. One of the most contentious debates rolling into the final days of the legislative session is over the Democrats' push to provide all employees in Connecticut with paid sick leave. This expansion is to cover people who work for companies that have fewer than 50 employees. The bill would allow workers to accrue an hour of paid time off for every 30 hours they work and a maximum of 40 hours of paid time off each year. Here's what House Majority Leader Jason Rojas, AZ's pal, had to say about that. Watch this.
I think there's an expectation, one, that we don't want sick people coming to work.
Right.
And two, right, we're trying to articulate policy that tries to strike a balance between work and life and strike that balance. And there are people who run into life issues who can't afford to not work and therefore should be compensated in the limited circumstances in which they need to take a sick day.
I think it is just a basic fact that if someone's getting sick, if someone needs to stay at home, it's better for the business, it's better for the worker, it's better for Connecticut's economy. I think that for 1,000 reasons this makes sense.
Yeah, so you know who think this is a really bad idea? That's Liz's pals, the Republicans. Roll it, Sweet Lou. Watch this.
It's not lost on any of us that the back of the bill, Section 7, is creating a task force to allow for tax credits for businesses who have to give this time off. So right in the very bill that they're passing, they're recognizing the devastating impact this can have on our economy because it's a benefit that businesses can't afford to pay. So if this is such a great thing, why are we having a task force to try to study a way to pay for it?
Right, to the panel who's never takes sick time off, guys, right? Who wants a piece of this?
No days off.
I think we all do. For me and where I sit, and you know, I'm more moderate than most, but I think it really isn't as big deal as it's being made out to be. Looking at the impact of the businesses and offsetting it for them is what we heard. We heard it's tough on business. It affects their bottom line, so they're looking at addressing that. But the basic issue is when people are sick, they need to stay home. And if they can't afford to stay home, they're coming to work sick. They're going to get more people sick. They'll get the visitors sick. And it's just a common sense bill. The governor came out with a very strong message. He applauded the House for passing it. And I applaud my fellow former colleagues, I guess, friends now, for stepping up and doing the right thing.
I think the troubling part here is that they make an assumption that businesses aren't already doing this and providing these benefits for their workers. And we have yet again a program being forced upon small business owners by Democrats because it's going to look great on campaign mailers, but it's another state program we don't need. And I'll give you an example. We have the state opt-out retirement benefits program. You have 2 million workers in the state of Connecticut, and there are only 2,700 people who are taking advantage of that program, and it's costing the state of Connecticut millions. And on top of it, you got a third of the people who apply for the current benefits for the paid sick time are getting rejected. So I just think we're spending millions of dollars on programs we don't need that are going to look really good on campaign mailers that don't actually help people.
No, I think this is a huge win for the state. You know, thank you and kudos to the Democrats who brought this to the finish line. A bigger margin of victory than when we saw this issue in 2011. And I do think that the task force is a great idea to make sure that there isn't that undue hardship or those unintended consequences for those small businesses that don't have already this particular policy already established. And let's be reminded that companies that already have 40 hours of PTO or paid time off established are exempt from this particular policy. This is a phased-in approach with universal, buy-in by the third year, 2027, and we're going to see how this plays into it. But look, I think it wasn't as big of a deal as I think folks are making it. It's a good thing.
Well, Jay, wrap it up.
Yeah, you know, I've tempered on this over the years since it first passed, and Speaker Ritter talked about how this is really going to impact a subset of businesses. There will be some really small businesses that will have added costs because of this, but the world of business has evolved, as Danielle said, to everybody just getting days off. It's not vacation days versus sick days, it's PTO days. As the chairman of a board of a local nonprofit, a YMCA, I'm a little concerned about how this is going to apply to our part-time seasonal staff workers. But other than that, I don't think this is going to have as much of an impact as the Republicans are saying.
Okay, so hey, Republicans decided last Thursday that it's time for the Democrats to make some adjustments to the state budget. Get a little of that. Democrats wanted to leave it untouched. Republicans offered a series of adjustments that they say balance the budget, make the state more affordable, honor the fiscal guardrails, and meet funding needs without dipping into the last of the remaining federal pandemic relief funds. That's ARPA to McKinney. Watch this.
We need to first convince the other side of the aisle that putting your head in the sand and doing nothing and spending the last tranche of federal money that we have is not good fiscal policy and will only get us into trouble. So we will have to wait and see what vehicle may be out there to attach this budget to.
We will ask OPM to go through it with their comments and feedback. We'll take a look at it. If they have good ideas, we will always look at them. The majority leader talked about a few ideas that are not good, but we'll look at other ideas, sure. But again, whether we reopen the budget, you know, at this late hour, it might be difficult.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, if there are good ideas that the GOP does bring forward, of course, we're going to look at it. And I do believe the speaker, when he
Joe
says
looked at them all, I'm sure.
Right. But here are the bad ideas. The bad ideas include reducing equity agency issues. Why are we going to get rid of that? They're talking about eliminating expanded health care for disability and elderly, right? We're talking about eliminating employment youth services for the summer. We have to do a better job at trying to balance the budget than taking away resources from much needed spaces.
Yeah, I think this was a really good move by Vin Candelora, leader of the House Republicans. I'm a little disappointed that my former caucus, the Senate Republicans, weren't there working with him. Look, as Republicans, we have to give our budget ideas. When we don't, we get criticized. When we do, we get criticized. It's better to put ideas on the table. I think, unfortunately, they had to do this because they haven't really been asked to the table yet to talk about where we're going. At the end of the day, I don't think the budget's going to be reopened, but if there are some good ideas, I hope the Speaker, who is a man of his word, will take them up and bring those in.
Yeah, and I look at it as just, you know, Vin and his caucus doing their jobs. It's good that they stepped up and they did the budget. We can poke holes in it, but it shows the public where they stand on the issues before them. And the Speaker and Vin have a great relationship. I know they do. They talk about a lot of things. It's the $175 million hole once you open the budget. And I think you just can't overcome that this year, but those ideas should be carried forward.
Look, I think we're all under this idea that we don't have to. And what the Republicans are saying is the numbers don't add up. We do have to go in and open up the budget because we are going into a deficit, which makes the budget out of balance. The big issue here is, look, Republicans have once again stepped up and said we are the party of education. Their investments in post-COVID services that are desperately needed by kids across the state of Connecticut, their investments in fully funding special education, they're putting their priorities on the table, and they're doing it to fit within the fiscal guardrails. And look, the Democrats are going to have to decide whether they want Governor Lamont to make all the decisions and they're just going to step away from it, or if they're actually going to come to the table and try and offer solutions.
All right, guys, just put a bow on it. House and Senate also approved pay raises last week for more than 45,000 state employees. The 2.5% raise will combine with a step hike that adds up to about a 4.5% net raise. This has Governor Lamont's backing, and it will cost well over $100 million. Here's response from both sides of the aisle on this one. Watch this.
This last year, this reopener is exactly that same paradigm, 2.5 plus steps. So this is nothing new. It's only wage and hour. We're not reopening the pension and health care benefits. The anticipated cost, at least to the appropriated funds in the general fund, plus at least, according to OFA, at least half of that $70 million is covered by the reserve for salary account. Right. My point being, this is something we budgeted for.
So my concern with all this is the $121 million ticket for next year, we're already over. You add this $121 million, while it might be in the RSA account, the governor now has to find a way to remediate $230+ million in spending, and where's that going to come from? It's not.
Guys, chew on this. According to the Republican think tank Yankee Institute, they looked at total raises across the Lamont administration since he's been in office, 33%.
Look, I see this as a bigger issue of, and indicative of the conversation we're going to be having in the next governor's election, where CBAC is going to be open, the fiscal guardrails expire. And I think we all need to be prepared for that conversation, because that is really the big issue that we're all going to be facing as a state. The governor's going to be facing it, whether he's running for re-election or not. The Republicans and Democrats in the legislature, that is the big issue I see.
Yeah, see, anytime Yankee Institute comes out with something, I always consider it fuzzy math. Remember when they came out against tolls with their math on that? It was proven wrong later. So I'll wait and see on their numbers. But we got to look at it as a whole. Go back to the year 2000 and look at what the state employees did. They not only did give backs, they had many years of zeros. We're kind of making up for that. We've seen a big draining of our state employee resources. We're hiring more people, but they're not up to the pay the other people's were. So we're just equalizing it. People deserve raises. Everything else is more expensive. The workers need the raises.
And I think that falls totally in line with what municipalities and communities like mine have done. These are not exorbitant things. These are living wages, COLA increases to make sure that our state employees, which are one of the biggest and vast employment pieces of the entire state, are kept in line with some of our inflation dollars. And so I think it's totally fair.
Joe's still got scars from the tolls.
The measles map.
All right, guys, a bill concerning artificial intelligence is getting a lot of attention at the state capitol. Up next on CalPower, we'll discuss what all the hubbub is about with our favorite political avatar. I think that's Mike right there. Mike Cerulli. When we get back, he could be generative AI, Mike, huh? We'll see in a little bit.
Prove it's you, Mike.
Yeah, wait.
I think with anything, there are some people who just don't want any regulation. They feel that no regulation is the answer. I tend to disagree.
Up at the Capitol, if you hear James Maroney's name, you're pretty much bound to hear the letters AI mentioned in the same sentence. Milford senator making a name for himself as a national leader on artificial intelligence policy. He's the principal author of a Senate Bill 2, a priority for Marty Looney's Senate Democrats. But the priority bill hit in a bit of a roadblock. So joining us to break it all down is Newsday's political contributor, our pal, Mike Cerulli. Hey, Mike, what the heck's going on up there?
Yeah, good morning, Tom. Where to start? It's probably worth describing how wide-ranging this bill is. SB 2 tackles everything from AI-generated pornography to election disinformation, and on many of those points, there is broad agreement. Anyone who hears those really disturbing stories about teenagers who have been targeted with sexually explicit AI-generated images will no doubt agree that something, anything, must be done on that front. Where Maroney's bill is facing opposition is on sections that opponents say could lead to a stifling of technological innovation. Connecticut would be a trailblazer here, passing state-level AI regulation, and many in the business community have argued to Maroney that the broadness of the bill, the uncertainty around the requirements it would place on those small startup and growth stage companies, that's really causing pause. And take a listen to what House GOP leader Vinnie Candelora had to say about that.
The issue with that bill is, I think a lot of people believe it needs to be addressed on a federal level. The bill really needs to be flushed out, and I think it's going to be a heavy lift.
Well, Vinnie Candelora opposes business regulations. Mike, so what are the Democrats saying on this? We expect Vinnie to say that, right?
Yeah, it might not shock you to hear that our businessman governor is also not really a fan of this bill. And it seems like a fair number of House Democrats share the governor's concerns, particularly over how this would affect many of those smaller businesses who might have more trouble than larger corporations navigating new regulations. Speaker Matt Ritter bluntly characterized the stances of both Governor Lamont and his House Democrats.
He doesn't like it as it was passed yesterday. Right. We're in a tough spot. You know, I don't know. If we polled our caucus, it would probably be a split between people who would agree with the governor or not.
And Tom, Speaker Ritter was also pretty clear about what needs to happen next. Even with all the concerns, he does think it's worth calling this bill for a vote, given the support it got in the Senate and the respect folks have for Maroney. And Ritter drew a line in the sand on Thursday. He made it very clear that the governor must issue a clear veto threat, something he doesn't like to do, if he wants to kill the bill before it gets to the House floor.
If you say, I don't know, that's different than I will veto the bill. And again, between now and next Friday, I hope that these conversations happen. And
when it comes to clarity, have you communicated that to the governor's office? That
guess I just did. Yeah. They need to say it.
They need to say it. And tip of the hat to Mark Pasniokis for getting that clarification. So the lines are drawn here, Tom, and we'll see how it plays out this week.
Newsday's political contributor Mike Cerulli bringing his A game to the AI issue this morning. I know the governor's watching. Gov's up to you. Thanks, Mike.
Great to be here.
Hey, up next on Cap Report, the top 10 list that Governor Lamont is happy to be a part of. With the details when we get back. Do not go away. Cerulli, the kid's bringing it. Kid's bringing it. No big secret. People in Connecticut seem to love the Gov. Ned Lamont, not even halfway through his second term, there's already chatter about whether he'll run again in 2026. And when you compare Lamont to his peers, he continues to sit at the top of the list when it comes to his approval rating. The recent Morning Consult survey of the nation's most and least popular governors show Lamont with the 10th best net rating among all governors, with 62% approval and only 31% disapproving of the job he's doing. He's the 5th highest rated Democrat. In case you're wondering, Vermont's Governor Phil Scott has the highest approval rating with 81%. So what do lawmakers under the Golden Dome think the governor's doing? We asked a few. Watch this.
The governor has been doing a good job with the economy of Connecticut. We're seeing it. We're seeing people finally move back here. We're starting to see some economic engine. We're undoing what was done before. The worst part, the worst days of the Malloy administration was the damage he did to our reputation throughout the country.
I mean, Governor Malloy had, I suppose, lower ratings, but that certainly didn't affect how
different economic times.
Yeah, it didn't affect the tone of the meeting. Let me tell you, you knew he was the governor, right? It's a powerful position, and so when he says something, you got to pay attention, right? He's got a lot of levers he can pull.
Rutigliano not being well received at Orno this morning.
Look, I'm going to say it. Still not as high as Jody Rill.
Fair enough.
My governor. But look, I think none of this matters if he's not running for re-election. Yeah. And he can be as popular as everybody wants to talk about. He's going into a lame duck session in the next 2 years if he's not running again. And there are going to be people nipping at his heels. They already are, yes. But it's really going to gin up here going into November and beyond.
Yeah, he's gotten beat out by number one, my buddy Wes Moore of Maryland. So so he has slipped from that particular way. We know that largely Lamont has enjoyed support from both sides, right? Pretty moderate. Democratic governor, and he has been able to be significantly good on issues on either side. So I think that's contributed to that. Let's see how after the tree situation pans out and when the polls come in next time, but I think he's doing a good job so far.
When you're very popular, you want it for two reasons. One, so you can get reelected. Two, so you can get what you want through the legislature. So the governor's very popular. If he doesn't like the AI bill, come out, say you're going to veto it.
Kill it.
Let's work and let's get work and get a better bill and use that political capital he has. The other thing I would say is, whether he runs or not again, and I hope he does, I hope this is a message to people in my party, that moderation works. And in Watson, Connecticut, Jody Rell, Ned Lamont, the two most popular governors we've had in a very long time. That's where we are in Connecticut.
Yeah, and the similarities between both of them, where they were out there, they were talking to people, they were having those conversations. And it is fair to say, what do you do with the 62% approval rating? You got to get out there and push an agenda. He has great ideas. I think legislatively, he's been stymied a little bit. You have an opportunity. It's election season. Get out there, connect to the voters, connect to the candidates.
There you go. Hey, so next up on Calp Report, Governor Lamont, speaking of the Nedster, makes a fashion statement. The panel provides their review. We'll discuss when we get back. Don't go away. Nedster, the GOAT. There it is, the UConn men's basketball team getting to ring the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. Governor Ned Lamont rocking that sporting baseball cap, joining the team's festivities. UConn's president also taking part. Guys, do you think politicians should wear lids like that? I don't think it looks like...
Shouldn't he be wearing a three-peat hat?
Good three-peat hat, right?
Him and Dan Hurley, both three-peat hats. Let's go.
A lot of UConn love on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. There's the Nedster. I don't know about that, guys. I don't think any politician looks good in a hat like that. I think you got to let...
I love that hat. I love the UConn hat. I think it's even better than his UConn tie.
I'm always wearing hats.
Tom, I think it's the military hat they got to avoid Mike Dukakis.
That's right.
Yeah, that's well.
So you look good in hats on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Well, it hides my facial expressions for the most part.
Those are never hidden from me.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for the panel. The great mayor of Bloomfield, Danielle Wong, the coach, Lizzie, Johnny Mac. I'm Tom Dutchick. See you next week.
All right, John.
One miss, Johnny.
Let's go.
He didn't even try. That was like a weak job.
We need a bigger mug.
No, but the